Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever caught yourself thinking about someone every single day, even though they haven't spoken a word to you in weeks or maybe even months? That's not necessarily a sign of love. It's actually a message from deep within you, telling you that there's something more inside that needs to be healed. You see, when a person stays in your thoughts but doesn't show up in your reality, it's not fate. It's often a form of emotional neglect toward yourself. And today, we're going to explore how to break free from that cycle, regain your strength, and stop holding on to the memory of someone who's no longer part of your life. Stay with me, this might change everything for you. When someone keeps living in your mind without reaching out, it isn't always about love. More often, it points to something unresolved inside your heart. The silence they leave behind creates an empty space. Your mind tries to fill it with past memories, imagined conversations, and quiet hopes. But this isn't about the connection you had. It's really about the wounds you haven't yet faced and healed. Human hearts naturally look for closure. When we don't get it, our minds keep the person alive in thoughts. But hanging on silently can be the loudest pain we feel. It's your mind clinging to a story that your soul may have already outgrown. Thinking about him all the time doesn't mean he was meant for you. It usually means you're still learning how to let go. When communication stops but your emotional attachment keeps growing, it's often because you're holding on to a version of him that existed in a memory, not the real him. It's your own heart gently asking to be set free. Silence is powerful in strange ways. It allows room for illusions to grow. Without fresh words, your mind replays the old ones, sometimes rewriting them to seem better than they actually were. You begin to romanticize the pain. You start thinking there was something meaningful hidden in the silence. But the truth is, if he cared, he would have made an effort. If you truly mattered to him, you wouldn't be left in confusion. You wouldn't be having imaginary talks with someone who has already moved on and likely doesn't think of you anymore. Still, you remain stuck in that pattern, hoping the universe will bring him back, hoping he'll realize what he lost. That hope becomes a burden, and the longer you hold it, the heavier it gets. The hard truth is, if you're still thinking about him constantly while he's disappeared without a trace, that says more about your own loneliness than his love for you. There's nothing wrong with remembering someone. Emotions don't just vanish overnight. Healing isn't quick or straight, but the danger comes when you begin to mistake those thoughts for signs. Just because he pops into your mind daily doesn't mean he's meant to stay there. Sometimes the mind holds on to what it couldn't accept. You keep going back because there was never a real goodbye, and you think if you keep thinking about it, maybe you'll finally figure it out. But here's a truth that's hard to accept. Closure doesn't always come from another person. It happens when you finally realize you don't need it to move forward. It happens when you recognize that your worth isn't based on someone else's silence. Your peace shouldn't depend on their presence or their absence. What really hurts isn't just the lack of messages, it's feeling like you've been left behind with no explanation. The silence feels like rejection. The thoughts become painful, yet you cling to them because that's all that's left. It becomes part of your routine. Each morning starts with a memory. Each night ends with a question. And in between, you wear a smile for the world, while deep down, your soul cries for closure. But how long can you keep living in this place of emotional confusion? How long will you let someone who doesn't even check on you take control of your peace, your thoughts, and your heart? You deserve more than just questions with no answers. You deserve more than lingering memories. You deserve effort. You deserve real presence. You deserve to be chosen every single day. Thinking about him constantly might feel like love, but many times it's your mind replaying past pain. It's your heart trying to rewrite the story just to make sense of the hurt. But ask yourself, am I in love with him? Or am I in love with the version I created to deal with the pain of losing him? Those are two very different things. One is based on what's real. The other is based on longing. And longing can be deceiving. It makes you think the past was perfect. It convinces you that their absence means destiny, that silence must mean there's depth. But real love doesn't confuse you. Real love shows up. It communicates. It brings you peace. It doesn't make you question yourself every single day. Eventually, you have to take your power back. That doesn't mean you stop caring overnight or that you force yourself to forget everything. It just means you change your focus. You stop trying to figure out why they're quiet, and you start paying attention to your own voice. You stop waiting for a text and start sending love to yourself. You stop asking why you walked away and instead ask why you stayed so long stuck in that loop. Healing begins the moment you understand that you've been talking to someone who no longer hears you, that you've been holding space in your heart for someone who already left. And that's not bitterness, that's clarity. Clarity that says, this chapter is closed, and I'm allowed to live my next one fully and freely. Letting go isn't about pretending he was never there. It's about respecting what once was, learning from it, and choosing not to let it define your future. It's about loosening the grip that those thoughts have over you and making room for peace. No, it's not easy. Some nights will still hurt. Dreams might still visit. But each time you choose yourself instead of clinging to his memory, you take back a piece of your strength. You remind your heart that it's okay to move forward. You remind your mind that you don't have to stay trapped in the past to feel alive. You don't need the memory of him to feel whole. What you need is your own presence, your own light. You need to stop seeing silence as something mysterious. You need to stop searching for hidden meaning in his absence. Sometimes silence is just silence. Sometimes people don't come back not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't meant to stay. Silence isn't a secret code. It's a mirror showing how deeply you need your own love. Stop shrinking yourself for the memory of someone who didn't see your true value. Stop pausing your life for someone who has already moved on with theirs. You're not here to wait in shadows. You're here to shine boldly, brightly, without apologies. The mind will wander, that's just how it works. But the heart needs to lead. And your heart knows when something is no longer helping you grow. If he's always on your mind, but you haven't heard a single word from him, let that be the message. It may have once been a soul connection, but now it's a reminder that you've been ignoring your own needs. Every moment you give to someone who gives you nothing back is a moment taken away from your own healing. Pour that time and energy into yourself. Create a life so full of meaning that there's no room left for doubts or confusion. Because in the end, it's not about who stayed in your thoughts. It's about who really showed up in your actual life. And above all, that person should be you. Your mind is an incredible storyteller. It can turn broken pieces into fairy tales. When someone cuts off communication but still lives in your mind, it's easy to think it must mean something important. Your brain begins to make up stories, adjust memories, and convince you that his silence has a deeper meaning instead of accepting that it's simply an end. But thoughts aren't proof. Just because he's in your head doesn't mean he belongs in your life. The mind often mistakes repetition for importance. Just because you think of him a lot doesn't mean he's meant for you. Many times, it's just your brain trying to solve an emotional puzzle that's missing too many pieces. And when there's no clear answer, you start filling in the gaps with your wishes instead of the truth. That's where emotional illusions start. It's normal to miss what once made you feel safe. especially if it ended suddenly. The mind clings to what's familiar, but turning someone into a fantasy when they're no longer showing up for you is risky. You start creating a dream around someone who has stopped making an effort, someone who no longer reaches out, no longer shows up, no longer participates. What you're holding on to isn't even him anymore. It's the idea of him softened and made perfect by memory. That's where it starts to hurt the most. You compare today's silence with yesterday's warmth. You can't let go because your heart still wants to believe that the past was real. But people show you who they are in their absence just as much as they do when they're present. True connection doesn't exist only in your thoughts. It lives in effort, time, and real moments. If he's not reaching out, that's a message. Silence isn't a blank page for your dreams. It's a loud signal. If you're someone staying in your thoughts often points to a deeper emotional need that hasn't been fulfilled. When those needs remain unmet, your mind keeps circling back to that person because it's struggling to let go of where it once felt something. But when someone's silence speaks louder than their love ever did, it's a clear sign. You're being shown the reality. The picture you've been clinging to is standing in the way of your healing. Releasing that image feels like sorrow, but in truth, it's progress. The difficult reality is, if someone is choosing not to talk to you, they are also choosing not to pick you. And you deserve to be picked, not just as a memory, not just in hidden thoughts, but openly and in real actions. Love that hides in silence isn't really love at all. It's simply a gap. And the more reasons you create for someone who's no longer present, the longer you keep yourself stuck where they left you. It can feel easier to hold on to a memory than to accept that you were left behind. But real healing only begins when you start facing the truth. It starts when you understand that silence isn't a form of love waiting to be unlocked. It's a sign that the love never fully arrived, and you deserve more than daydreams and imagined conversations that will never be real. Your mind will wander back, especially when you're feeling soft or open, but you can change that pattern. You have the ability to stop feeding the fantasy. You can keep reminding yourself of what actually took place, not what you hoped happened, not what you think he might be feeling, but the honest truth about his absence. The more you stay grounded in reality, the less powerful the fantasy becomes. It's not simple. It takes steady effort. But every time you stop yourself from spinning that same thought, each time you focus elsewhere, you're taking back your power. You're telling yourself that story is over. And now you're starting a new chapter. Many people mistake emotional intensity for fate. They believe frequent thoughts mean there's a soul bond or something divine. But often, the brain just loops because it didn't get closure. The unfinished ending turns into a scratch that your mind keeps reaching to soothe. And by trying to fix it, you replay it, rethink it, and paint it prettier than it was. But the mind is always trying to find meaning in confusion. It doesn't like things left open. That doesn't mean he's rare. It means your heart wants peace and your mind is trying to create it using fantasy. But true peace shows up when you stop waiting on their words and begin choosing your own. Even if the thoughts feel strong, remember this. Real love isn't born in the imagination. It lives in the present. It's in the messages you get, the calls you answer, the talks that carry weight, the time people give. If none of that is happening, then their space in your mind needs to shrink. You can't keep giving your mental energy to someone who refuses to be part of your real life. That's not love. That's emotional harm to yourself. And your first step toward freedom is seeing that not every person who lingers in your mind deserves to remain in your heart. Some thoughts should be released, not romanticized. It hurts to let go of what once made your heart race. It stings to admit that someone who once meant everything now only lives in your memory, but that acceptance brings peace. That clarity shows you that not everyone is meant to stay forever. Some people enter your life to teach you your own value, even through the silence they leave behind. Once you understand that lesson, the pain no longer controls you. Sure, your mind will occasionally drift back, but now you'll have the wisdom to say, that's over. You'll bring yourself back to today, where healing, growth, and love for yourself are ready and waiting. You're not weak for thinking about him. You're just human. You're not broken because you can't forget. You're simply healing. But don't confuse frequent thoughts with a signal that he's meant for you. Don't explain away someone's silence. Don't carry a memory like it's your duty. You have a future that needs your energy, a present waiting for your awareness, and a soul that deserves rest. Let your thoughts wander, but always bring them back to truth, to what's real, and to yourself. Because the most meaningful love story isn't the one you had with him. It's the one you're going to write with yourself. If he's always in your head but never in your life, don't take that as a sign to run after him. Take it as a sign to stop and reflect. The brain holds on to people who once made us feel noticed, even if that bond no longer exists. If he's not communicating, yet lives rent-free in your thoughts, it's time to turn inward. This journey is no longer about him. It's about the part of you that still yearns for safety, connection, and to feel valued. Many times, the mind keeps circling back not because that person is unique, but because you haven't learned how to give yourself the things they once did. You keep reliving the emotions, the words, the comfort, not realizing you're fueling an illusion. But healing isn't found in rewinding. It begins when you ask yourself why you're not offering yourself the love you once waited for from them. The person stuck in your head, especially when they put in no effort, isn't proof of destiny. It's a mirror showing your need for emotional fulfillment. You might be clinging to their image because deep inside, there's still an emptiness that you hope they'll fill. But no one outside of you can heal what was never their job to fix. The craving isn't just for him. It's your soul asking you to show up for yourself. We're taught that love means thinking about someone all the time. But that's not love. That's attachment. That's what happens when we decide our worth depends on someone else's presence. But the longer you wait for their return or explanation, the more distant you become from your own strength. And strength is never found in silence. It's found in how you handle that silence. Thinking about him isn't a sign of weakness. It's simply a habit. That habit lives inside of you. It's made of repeated choices and moments. It's in the quiet when you want to reach out. It's in how you answer your own pain. It's muscle memory. But not every thought needs your attention. Your brain is trained to go back to what feels known. And if he was once your emotional anchor, it makes sense that he'd still appear in your mind. But if he's not active in your life, your healing requires you to break that habit. The truth is, the more you glamorize his absence, the longer you block your own growth. He's not the cure for your loneliness. He's not the end to your sorrow. He's just a reminder of your need for deeper connection with yourself. When you understand that, your thoughts move from fixation to understanding. You don't have to silence your thoughts. You need to hear what they're trying to show you. Every time your mind runs to him, ask, what part of me feels unseen? What inside me needs attention right now? Your thoughts are not betraying you. They are highlighting where you still need healing, but that healing doesn't depend on anyone else. It can begin with you. You can be the one who listens, who comforts, who supports. True healing begins when you stop making everything about him and gently bring it back to yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a way that's absolutely necessary. These are the steps, the phases, the process that shaped your attachment to him, not to make you feel like a victim, because victims lose. And you are not a victim. Self-focus is not selfishness, it's survival. When someone goes quiet, it doesn't mean you vanish, but often that's exactly how we respond. as though we're frozen in time, waiting to be seen again. Your mind keeps his memory alive to protect you from the pain of moving forward. But healing doesn't erase your past, it transforms it. You're allowed to outgrow people who can't meet you where you are now. You have permission to stop waiting for someone who's already stopped waiting for you. Your mind may resist, but your spirit knows better, and the truth is, you deserve presence. You deserve to be someone's priority. You deserve real love that doesn't keep you guessing. Thinking about him constantly won't bring him back, but turning inward will bring you back to yourself. Emotional maturity starts the moment you realize your thoughts don't always tell the truth. They tell stories based on fear, past pain, and longing, but they're not always based in reality. Just because you keep thinking about him doesn't mean he's meant for your future. More often, it means something from your past still hasn't healed. And the only way forward is to stop running from yourself. The more you chase him in your thoughts, the more you run away from your healing. You need to face the discomfort. Stop escaping into what-ifs and start living in what is. And what is real right now is that he's not here. But you are, and you are more than enough. You don't need his voice to feel validated. You don't need his return to feel whole. You are not broken because he left. You are growing because you stayed. Let every memory of him guide you back to your own heart. Let every ache bring you closer to your spirit. You can't rewrite,